Good morning and Jihwich, and welcome to season 11 of Gather for Her, a powerhouse masterclass series for social impactors, exploring what it means to be a relational change maker and leader in these unprecedented times of systemic change. Let me give you a little bit about Powerhouse. Powerhouse champions relational change makers and their organizations, offering hands at your back support with our relational change maker model to amplify and accelerate the social impact that you're here to make. And we have a theme as we do every season. And this season of Gather, it's all about holding space for vulnerability, which is part 2 of 4 parts that began where our annual Fire Circle left off. And if you aren't familiar with our Fire Circles, it's our annual gathering of global change makers where we take on a seemingly unanswerable question or insurmountable, goal, if you will. And over a course of 4 days and various different events, we unpack it and really allow the solution between all of us to present itself between all of the ways that we interact over those 4 days. And so in our last Fire Circle, our question was, how do we heal our systems? And the answer that came through all the different breakout groups, all the conversations, like all the different ways we explored, everything came back to relationship. And so we take that like instructions and we bring that forward. And so in season 10 of Gather for Her, our conversation was around breaking open to relational ways. And so in this season, we're taking us further out on the skinny branches to explore the next step of relational ways, which is vulnerability. We want you to know that every Gather conversation is offered to illuminate hope, to encourage possibility, and challenge each of us to make the shift from individuated leadership to interconnected. Or you might be familiar with from top down to heart-centered. Or certainly in the language of Powerhouse, we would say from transactional to relational. I'm Tina Overbury, or Tina O, and I'm your moderator. I'm an ally of Irish and French Canadian settler heritage. I'm currently living as an uninvited guest on the traditional unceded and ancestral territories of the Squamish people. The Coast Salish Sea is right outside this window, and I'm very grateful to play, create, and do my best to steward the land where I rest my head on Nequalaquam, also known as Bowen Island. And I'm super grateful to be in circle this morning with my co-conversationalist, Charlene Senjanko. And missing today is Christina Benti and Sharon Marshall of The Braid. They've got other stuff going on, but that's okay because Char and I are so happy to jump in today with Daphne March, who Char is going to introduce to you after she introduces herself. So I'm going to pass to you, Char, over to you.
Thanks, T. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Charlene Senjenko. I'm the founder of Powerhouse and of Regen Media. My family is from the Splatsin band of the Shuswap Nation, and I currently live, work, and play on Squamish lands on the Sunshine Coast of Western Canada. It's my great pleasure to introduce a very special sister and guest today. Really looking forward to this conversation. And before we begin, I would like to read Daphne March's professional bio. So pardon me for reading, but I really don't want to miss anything because it's all so very good. Daphne March is a recovery coach, and she's a land-based healing facilitator who specializes in hospitality and wellness. She's a daughter to Cyril and Cassie March, who ran a March's shop and a gathering place in Gillams, Newfoundland for 50 years. She is the owner of RR House, a 4-star accommodation. And drawing on her Mi'kmaq heritage, Daphne organizes meditation, culinary, and outdoor experiences to help her guests reconnect with nature. Daphne's business, Shamasha, was created to honor her dad, her culture, and to help herself, her family, and others find hope and heal from the disease and disconnection that has been destroying lives in her community and across Turtle Island. From Daphne's life experiences with addiction, recovery, and from traveling to places to study in circle with world-renowned recovery teachers, healers, and elders, and time on the land has taught her we have the same story, just experienced as different characters. Pain is pain. She feels that Shamasha is needed in the world for so many reasons, but mostly to empower and provide a safe place for all people. It is such a pleasure to welcome you. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. And I just want to turn it over to you, Daphne, to maybe fill in some gaps of how would you like us to know you and who you are that's showing up today for this conversation. And welcome.
Well, thank you so much. It's just a pleasure to be here with you guys. Of course, I've been part of the Power Circle for a while and sat on the other end of this conversation. So for me, it's was a slow process of getting to speak, actually, to to being vulnerable to be able to sit in this platform and speak on my work and myself. It took a lot of courage, but I'm so glad that I'm here, and I'm so honored that you welcome me into your space to speak today.
Thanks, Daphne. I just want to say that I thought of you for this series around vulnerability because I really have experienced you as a global presence, like back to Shar's, a lot of Shar's offerings around one family. I really feel like you embody that, and your transparency around recovery and your journey there. I feel like you're just a beautiful, safe space to explore vulnerability. Yeah, so I applaud your work and your journey, and also, if anybody else has tuned in to Gather this season, we talked about Marilyn Maycheck. We had Marilyn Daphne on as well from the Lift Collective, the Indigenous Lift Collective Amplify path. And Daphne, you were also on that path. So I just want to also raise my hands to Vanessa and the Indigenous Lift Collective. And I just want to hand the floor over to you, I think, Daphne, around vulnerability and wherever you want to go. I just think of you as a storyteller. So where do you want to go with vulnerability today?
Okay, so vulnerability, it took me a long time to get there. I didn't know what vulnerability was, to be honest. I guess, studies been showing that, I live with childhood trauma, and finding a safe place to be vulnerable wasn't available to me as a child. So I got all pushed down. So of course, what came up was fear and shame and all this. And when I get my teenage years, I still carried on with this, like the unhealthy way of being to mask the vulnerability, the real self, the real me. And unhealthy relationships, and then alcohol was part of my story. Codependency is a big problem, for my life, and my family as well. Is an inherited thing, as we know, as a disease from self. And the vulnerability didn't come in till really late in my recovery, actually. I traveled to a lot of places in the world to get that cure, find it, get it, like touch it and be it, And I was striving from a different place. I was coming from a place of shame and that kind of way. So I couldn't find it anywhere. But what I found vulnerability to was on the land. I had to surrender to Mother Nature. I had to keep doing it and keep doing it until I felt something, that I felt that I was vulnerable, and I seen it in the sunsets. I would see it in the water, and I would go all different times to keep myself safe. And I thought, my goodness, like I'm just so raw with these feelings, these emotions. And the more I did that, I keep going, because I had no other choice. So when I did that and keep surrendering to being vulnerable, because that was my safe place, I had nothing else. That I learned a lot about myself. That I left up from the fear, I left up from the shame, I left up that it wasn't me. It was something that mastered the true, authentic Daphne that got mastered as a child so many years ago. And there's when then that happened that, and I was like, and thank you for supplying this safe place for me, because if I had to tell somebody in community that, that Mother Earth owed me and kept me safe so I could be vulnerable, they were like, check her into the local hospital. Like, that kind of way, because that's how our systems are, that kind of way. So, so when I allowed myself to be open-minded, I allowed myself to connect to my culture by being vulnerable with the land. It was a life changer for me. It was a change maker for me that I'd be able to sit in a seat today and share this with you guys, And it brought me into a land of courage, and being courage is like, now I got fear. Oh, absolutely, I'm human. But you know what? It doesn't last very long. I go into courage. And I just love that. It's so empowering. And I wish that everybody get to that level.
Uh, I just want to jump in, Daphne, because the story that I'm tracking through the powerhouse conversations in Gather for Her this season are about prioritizing preventative.
Mhm.
And I think about your work, from your lived experience in not having prevention prioritized for a very long while and then needing to go into recovery, to the work that you're doing now, which is all about, in my mind, is all about, as much as possible, preventative measures. And um, and you're leaning into the ultimate mother of all healing,
Mhm.
right? The ultimate mother of all healing. And I wondered if you could speak to your own experience, like around land-based healing, because I think people hear that, but I'm not sure they fully understand it or embody it. And it is such a powerful tool that what if we recognize that Mother Earth is the ultimate healer for all that ails us? How might we be with her? But
Yes.
yeah, I'd love to just let you speak to that for a while.
That's a very good question, because people say to me, well, what do you do when you go out in the land with people? Like, what is your formula? How do you get them to, whatever you did so really good with this one or that one? And I'll just say, I just provide the space, and Mother Nature does the work, because we're all created from the Creator, and Mother Earth, is the Creator, and though so we're so connected that Mother Nature just takes over. And with me, from my experience and the healing and stepping into it, walking slowly, because I didn't have the structure. I didn't have someone that was leading me. I had something that I was telling me from my Creator, you need to do this. You need to step into this. You need to get up. You need to see, if you're being grateful, well, show you're grateful. Go on the land and speak to the sun. Hug the trees for forgiveness. And the trees on the land have taught me so much about myself and about healing, because it's the 4 seasons, of course. And I got this one tree that was on my journey when I was going through a really hard time in my life. It was one of the worst times of my life, actually. And I see them like, they're always standing tall, but they got really good roots. And that's what I really found about, what? I'm a Mi'kmaq woman here in Newfoundland. And it almost brings me so much emotions that I'm connected to my culture, and I'll be able to sit here and say those words. Because for a long time, I could not say that because I ran away from my community. I ran away from, my father, being called a jacketar because he was an Indigenous man. I didn't want to have anything to do with that. I lived with enough shame with that. But on the land, when I used to go with my dad, we were safe. We enjoyed it. So what happened, like my father always say, everything come full circle. And that's what happened. The last couple of years from the pandemic and all this, it brought me back on the land that I see my culture. I see my ancestors walking beside me as I was vulnerable to it, or asking for guidance, going to the water after water was flowing and asking, give me a sign. I want to flow. I want my mind, my attachments to flow away, just like you, water, you know? So all those sunrises and sunsets, the tea on the land, sitting down and being very grateful and get away about, like in Newfoundland. Have you ever been to Newfoundland and Labrador? We talk a lot about weather and we complain about our weather. And I always say, you know what? There's no bad weather in Newfoundland. It's just bad clothes. So I spent the time on the land, bought really good clothes, and I'm out there winter, summer, rain, sun, or shine. I actually welcome the rain. And I've befriended the wind in Newfoundland and St. John's. Have you ever been here? It's raw. But you know what? It's part of nature. So I embrace all of us and all of me and all of our people.
Oh my gosh, Daphne. Oh my gosh. That thing, if you are being grateful, if you are grateful, show you're grateful. As you know, there's a teacher I've been following, Dr. Martin Shaw, as a storyteller, right? Because that's where my call in healing lives. And you're only like the second person now that I've met who actively voices, he would be number one. When he started storytelling, he would go to the land and tell stories to the land as a relational action. And the first time I heard that, I actually had, and I don't know what happening with the listeners. My body was like, what the hell does that mean? You're reading poetry to the land? But when Shar asked that question, how does the land do it? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what you're talking about. And then when you told the story of the tree that was with you through that hard time, it wasn't what I received probably for the first time, honestly. It wasn't the transaction of when I give gratitude to a tree, then I feel better. It was, I am in relationship with this tree. And I wonder if you can speak a little bit to your transition from meeting the land to being in relationship with the land, because I think that is probably hard for people to understand. I feel like I'm just getting it, and I'm pretty like, I explore a lot. Can you explain a little bit about that transition?
So I always believe that nothing in this world's mistake. And, we get gifts, and some of our gifts we get, they're not that great. and, when we got no other choice, we go. And that's exactly what happened to me, is that I went out on the land. I embraced the land. And when it's hard to explain, because it's a feeling. And and the thing is, it's like recovery, right? You know what I mean? It's like, say, how do you get recovery? How and all that is taking little steps and doing it consistently. And that's what I did with the land. And when people, it's just a sensation of feeling that a connection is like all my relations, right? So for your relationship with people, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with all beings, which is and that's trees, herbs, food, all that all makes all of us up, right? So they say, we have a lot of problems in our Indigenous communities, and we have a lot of problems with our environment. And they say because we lost the path to our people, and we lost a disconnecting to our families. I know my family is in distress right now, and it's very sad and very, very troubling, But on the land is not. You don't feel that. But the more that you go back to you, that it'll come full circle, that you'll be ready for when your family do show up. It will be healing. And just like what our environment, what's happening with our climate and things like that, it'll all come, but we all need to come together as people, as respect for the land, respect for each other. It all come full circle. I don't know if I answered that question or not, Tina, but that's the best I could do on that.
Yeah, you did. I would say for listeners, what I heard you say is for you, it was a sensation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody else might feel it a different way, but
Yeah, because the thing is, like, if I look at a sunset, like I am, my feeling or my, sensation to it or my excitement is different than yours, right? Because we all got different experiences in life. You might have had a bad experience about a sunset. Who knows, with that kind of way, right? So it's all individual that way, to our respect, our relationship to the land and to our people and to ourselves. And we did it from different ways, right?
I think if I could just add a piece, what comes up for me in how might we be more relational in our interactions with the land. And it is I think we can use what the land doesn't have, meaning we express it, like just name it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, what a gorgeous sunset. The sunset is expressing gratitude. The sunset makes me feel this. I'm so grateful. Expressing the healing power of what you're seeing.
Yes.
And we're taught through lessons, we're taught through wisdom to give thanks, right? To give thanks. And it's interesting, in a previous conversation we talked in quite depth about what it means to hold space. And I talked about how, for me, holding space is active. It's a verb. And so I want to pull that into, gosh, mother nature is the ultimate space holder, right?
Yes.
And so how might we be, like, what's the activeness of holding space in that container? But I think that that is one example of it, is recognizing the healing power, naming it, appreciating it. That's what I hear Daphne saying about the sensations and appreciating those sensations. Yeah.
Yeah, like growing our own food, like, really connecting to Mother Earth, growing our own food, cooking with our own food, and touching with our hands, the energy of that, and giving thanks for what we got, is all relational to the land. You could think about anything in our lives, everything is connected to the land, right? But the thing is, we take it for granted because it's always there, but it's changing now.
that's what I'm curious about in your work. So I wonder if we can I want to say your work with Shama Shah, but I think we might need to name Shama Shah first. Can you tell us a little bit? Whenever I hear Shama Shah, I'm going to do this. Shama Shah, because I've seen you do it.
Yeah.
Introduce us to Shama Shah.
Yeah. Well, Shama Shah of course, is a memory from my father. And we grew up, like your introduction is that my father, every time he greets somebody, he will put his hands up in the air and he say Shama Shah 3 times. And so it was an instant human connection. And it brought so much joy. It brought so much laughter and connection, and and it didn't die. It was always there, and it's still with my family, whatever, it's always there. It's this type of energy I can't explain, and Yeah, it's a beautiful. So I don't know. Dad passed, and we didn't know because we just took Dad for granted by saying that. We just was lightfulness, was that kind of way. So now with my culture, it's like, was that his language? Was that his message to the government of Newfoundland? I don't know, right? We don't know, right? So now I feel it's my responsibility to keep the Shamasha energy alive and pass it on to the next generations, the next 7 generations. And I'm going to be a grandma this year. So I'm sure that the baby will be getting a Shamasha t-shirt at some point.
Oh,
So
oh my gosh, how many baby pictures are gonna be taken with the baby's arms up?
I know, right? Shamasha, right? Yeah. So for me, with the Shamasha, it's like I say, it's a responsibility, but it's a connection, a human connection. And the United Nations say the biggest problem in the world right now is our connection, is loneliness. And as soon as doesn't matter where I am in the world, doesn't matter who I meet or whatever. And as soon as I say Shamasha, people just smile and they just like, right. So it's the energy. The whole world is about energy. All of us is energy. So yeah, it's quite a special name for sure.
Oh, beautiful. Well, let's go jump into the medicine of vulnerability. Because I'm curious about, as you've named so clearly, we have taken the earth for granted. We've taken our relationship for granted, and as we know, in our own relationships, land or otherwise, anything we take for granted ends up divisive. Like there's a gate between us now. We have to open that door.
Mm.
And so I'm wondering, when you're working with people on the land, what do you notice about courage and bravery about making a connection? Like maybe for some people, it's their first time feeling the earth. What can you
Mhm.
share with us about that?
So it's like it doesn't matter what we do as like a chemical or whatever is a disease from self. So really, when I first start working with people, is a relationship, and we got to build trust. And to me, like we got to be compatible, and so I work, and I always do really early mornings because the sunrise has got a different kind of energy to it. That it's most people I know don't go and see the sunrise. It's the most powerful thing in the world to me, wherever I am. If the sun has so much power, and so they're just taken with that, and then and then the telephones and like no telephones, no, and I'll just all the space talk. And then a couple times into it, I was like, we don't speak this morning. We'll just go single file and just look at what's around us and just see what you see from your eyes, what you smell, the senses. And so I get, and then you get really in your head then when someone tells you that, because you're expecting to say everything because you're just dying to talk to, you do counseling, right? You always want to talk to your counselor, but this, that, something else, but you're doing the opposite on the land. You're letting the land speak to you and let you speak to yourself and see you as a person. So that really surprises people. And then we just sit up and somewhere beautiful on the land and have a cup of tea and have a little chat, whatever. So, and then you always know, anybody that struggle with addictions and know this, that we have a story. Everybody has a story. Whether they're okay to share or not, eventually you'll get it. It might be once, twice, three, but they got to make themselves vulnerable to do that. So when they become vulnerable to do that, well, we got trust. They broke through the fear of telling another person, another human being, about this awful thing that they thought they did. Because all of our stories thinks that we're the worst people in the world when we struggle that way. So we let those barriers go. We be vulnerable. Now we got a relationship. And for me as a teacher, it's been an amazing healing journey for me in the work of compassion and empathy for others that suffered that way, like I have, and my family members. So it's been an even exchange. It's just been a powerful experience. And the land is like I've been to many retreats in the world, and I sat on a lot of meditation seats and looked at nature. But to me, the healing for me, I don't know, is it just for Indigenous people? I don't know. I've never did a study on this or researched this, but the powers is in the land. It's like, I remember Hilda was saying the power of the people is equal to the spirit of the land. And that was, that I'm absolutely know is true.
The power of the people is equal to the spirit of the land.
Yeah. Or the opposite, the spirit of the people is
Yeah.
equal to the power of the land. Yeah.
Mm.
And it's so true. We're powerful people of the land.
That reminds me of the Miriam, oh my gosh, Miriam quote, Williamson, "We are powerful beyond measure," and that can be really frightening to hold that as true.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, you got to like take the mind out of it and the ego and step into your heart center. And when we step into the heart center, the energy of the art will amazing. It'll break down any barrier that anyone could ever have. I feel.
It's interesting, that quote that you said, Daphne, makes me think about a related conversation that I've had in that as we heal, the earth heals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the invitation that we have is let's not let the climate crisis be a distraction from our own healing. It is one and the same. I mean, my Indigenous teacher has said to me many times, Shar, Mother Earth will be just fine. It's whether we will be here as human beings or not.
Yes.
That's the real question. And I think what I see right now is, as much as we can possibly deflect on solving all of the other issues externally, then we don't have to really work on what needs to happen right now, which is healing ourselves and our families. But what if they are one and the same thing?
They are. All my relations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we always go solve ourselves, for that excitement or that hit or whatever. And it costs us a lot of pain. But I guess, as you know, the history of Canada, what we call Canada, we have a lot of trauma. And until we look at that and be able to heal from that and really be empowered by that, we're still going to be still struggling, And so one person at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time, to get to the healing that we need as people. But when we do, we are amazing people. Oh my goodness. We create like anything. We love like you wouldn't believe. We work hard. We got all the elements that you ever believe of. It's just that we got to believe in ourselves.
Your what's kind of flashing in my mind right now is Powerhouse's change maker model, relational change making model, and the 4 steps of relationship to self, and then relationship to other, and then relationship to all, and then relationship to spirit. And not that it has to be in that order, because what flashed in my mind was, it sounds to me, from what I heard you say, that it was through the relationship to all that you were able to access relationship to self.
Absolutely. No doubt. If you don't have a relationship with spirit, you don't ever believe. You don't believe, right? And like a lot of things that happen in people's life, you vision it before it happens. You feel it before it happens. Like I want to, I'm lucky enough to have really good teachers, and I was like, I want to be like him or like her. So I always go, and my energy, I really find my energy, my breath is really sacred to me. So
Mm.
the energy I'm around, I really want to be around someone with an higher energy. So I'd be able to get up to that and feel that and keep climbing that ladder up to where I need to be in the world. And I love that because it works. And people have been doing it for forever. It's just that we didn't believe that we could. And when we could tap into that energies of the world, it's beautiful. It's joyful.
We've got it. We've got some more diving in minutes,
Okay.
Daphne, before we, move into I feel like we've touched the medicine question, and I don't feel like we're ready for the third question yet. So I just want to reflect back to you, not reflect. I want to invite back to you, what's really on your heart these days? What I want to give you some more space to talk about the things that are on your heart while
Yeah.
there's people listening.
Yeah. So, on my heart is after healing a lot. I had a lot going on the last couple of years, divorce, restructuring my business, letting go of my dream per se. Uh, but I found that, again, the gifts that we get is something that is meant for you, and we're always programmed into our old way of being. And it's only that when you get pain that you realize we need to get off this path and get onto this path. And basically, that's what happened to me to be able to restructure Shamasha into health and wellness retreats and let go of the idea of having, all this land or this buildings or whatever the case might be. We still could do the same work. And being faith, having strong faith, and having good mentors, and being really showing up every morning. Like I show up every morning on my mat and do my spiritual sadhana practice. I give thanks. I very seldom complain. I'd be more in gratitude. Actually, for the new year, I have a big jar, and every day I put 3 words that I'm grateful for. And that's really caused me to have good energy. And and it carries some kind of appreciation for my life, right? Instead of being in all sorry space, oh, this happened and that happened, and all that. I'm in a space of gratitude for all my joys and all my challenges to get me to where I need to go on my path that the creator wants me to be. Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. What that makes me think of, Daphne, your gratitude jar. It makes me think of, we'll take copious amounts of vitamins and supplements every day for our physical health. But what about those little vitamins and nutrients and supplements for our emotional and our mental and our spiritual health? And that's what you're doing. And what it's allowed you to do is really cultivate a sense of hope and joy around you. And healing only happens in the presence of hope.
Yes.
So in this healing conversation, like that's such an important ingredient, and I think sometimes it gets skipped over. So
Yeah. Yeah. Because we think that we got to pay for something. And when we pay for something with money, we think that, oh, that got value. And we save for it, or we can't afford it. We want something that someone else got. Right? But we could have so much more. Just tap into it, tap into your real true self. And that's how you do it. It's being going down, like I found, like down to the ground level and working your way up. And really, really, really doing the work and stepping into it and really being part of the, like, there's sad days, there's all these kind of things, but show and call them out and say, you know what, I'll accept all parts of me and I welcome all things for me. Because when we got these pain moments, or we got this, or somebody piss you off, whatever, there's a teaching in that. Be welcome to that, instead of carrying a resentment or carrying a judgment. Carry and see what's in you that you could do better today, that you could give service to others. And, I find at my age, we're on the wisdom, on the wisdom wheel. And so the more I could learn from others, the young, the community and all that is welcome. And now I don't always like it. But hey, that's part of learning, and it's part of healing, and it's part of allowing all parts of us show up so we could be able to be who we need to be.
You're pulling on a thread that's come through all, like, the last two previous conversations. Nicole's conversation was around well, she didn't use this word, but radically accepting all parts of ourselves,
Mhm.
and that was around creating safety. And so starting with self, so that we can do that for other people. Not so that we can do it for other people, but then we just can. And then Marilyn Maycheck also talked about it. My mind just kind of, when she said, "Imagine walking into a room and you didn't have to explain yourself. You didn't to feel safe. You just were." And yeah, I accept all parts of me. Yeah, just thank you for dropping that in here. Um, when you think of the long game, not that the word game is, it might be in your, you might not use that. When you think about the long path, when you think about the long path of your life and the change work that you're here to do, and I use that word deliberately, but you might use a different word. You might not self-identify with that word change maker, but I know that in your work of contribution, what's the long game for you around Shama Shah and, yeah, your impact here that you're here to make?
Well, I'd like to see my family, especially the women in my family, see how amazing they are, and be able to be example, and be able to be a mentor or be example for them in their life, that we won't be able to suffer like we suffered enough. And really be able to be proud of our culture, and be able to really to accept the past, but we able to be excited for the future as well, and know that whatever we want to do, we could do it. We have all of it. There's nothing wrong with us. It's just that the systems don't always work for us, and we don't need to complain about it and be in that energy. Just be, you need to be in the world and really lift each other up, and be able to, I love to see Shama Shah to do amazing work with other people in the world, partnership with other people, you know, and be a voice for our people, and be able to do change making. I love that word, change making, because you guys, in Powerhouse have done so much. And that's what I loved about this community, is it provided a safe place. And when you could speak about anything, and you could be authentic, you could be what you think is weird that you couldn't say in community or with somebody, you could say it here and people understand. Like, that is a change in itself, is amazing, right? I don't like these guys, you know? And so, yeah, so I just like to be part of like the powerhouse. Like I feel that I am. Little steps and doing it over and over and showing up for each other and having each other's back. I love that. And yeah, we're in line. Shama Shah is in alignment with Powerhouse for sure.
Thanks, Daphne. I think there's going, you and I have talked about this a little bit, but when we're ready, I think there's going to be a Shama Shah powerhouse, retreat at your place out in Newfoundland. And we're all coming to
Oh
sit
my
and have tea on the earth and watch the sunrise with you. I bet you I bet you we can find 6 people who want, or more, who want to come and watch the sunrise with you after this conversation.
Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be really good. Well, everyone is always welcome.
Aw.
Oh,
Doors
I,
always
I yeah, I would second that. I would love to just say, let's plan a future date and start to put that word out to folks, because I can actually think of someone who's originally from Newfoundland that would be love to be joining us. I just want to thank you, Daphne. What came through in this conversation, just the last tail end that I'm really hanging on to, is a teaching from you today about how we are absolutely living in and living with an energetic ladder. And
Mhm.
every day we can decide, are we going up the ladder? Are we going down? We're going up the ladder, we're going down. And as we tap into the energies of the world, just being aware of them, whether it's the really positive energy of Mother Earth, or some of the energies that are out there that might not be elevating the ladder. But we always have a choice in what we're doing with them. And that really speaks to me and the work that I know Powerhouse and Regen through media and storytelling that we're up to, is to just make sure that the inputs that are coming at us on a daily basis are just as elevating as possible.
Mhm.
And making sure that that energetic ladder is as solid, with really good footing as possible. So I just love that metaphor. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, like, and for sisters who's not feeling good today, let's be the lighthouse to lift them up, and that's what I love about your platform that you're doing, is because many times in the last year I sat in Paros, I didn't feel very good. It was people like Tina and other people in the room that really lifted me up, So this is a great thing you're doing in the world. Thank you.
Mhm. Thanks, Daphne. What I'm leaving with today, I keep hearing, it's not just hearing. So when I say hear, it's almost like I hear and I see at the same time. I hear, see, feel, almost like it's happening at the same time. So I know that's the message for me when it lands in that place. And I keep hearing, like I'm seeing when you said, and I just did it again, and I did it again, and I did it again. I just kept going out there, and so it's the repetitive piece until contact is made,
Hmm.
is what I'm really, yeah, what's really landing in my body for me, and as an invitation to anyone listening who may feel like having that connection is challenging, like I might even feel like a stranger to them, is just do what Daphne said. Go out there and do it again and do it again and do it again and do it again until connection is made. And that beautiful tree, I'm so grateful for that beautiful tree, Daphne,
Yes.
who walked beside you through your hardest time. Ah, so grateful for that beautiful tree. Will you hug and kiss that tree for me all the way from the west coast of Canada?
I will.
What are you leaving with today? How is this conversation? Uh,
Well, I'm leaving with like peacefulness and being heard in a space that is so inviting, and being part of two sisters on the other side of Canada, that we're all connected, and yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you.
hmm. Well, thank you. And we'll share your website at shamashaw.com. I think it's .com. We'll put it in there so you can find out more about Daphne. And of course, you can also find out more about her on the Powerhouse website with her Amplify profile that is coming out. I just want to close us in a good way and thank you for joining us on Gather for Her, a Powerhouse Masterclass series unpacking what it means to be a relational leader in these unprecedented times of global change. We want you to know that this conversation has been recorded and it will be shared on our YouTube channel, and again as a podcast renamed as The How for Her, which you can find on Spotify and all the other places that you listen. Gather for Her is created by Powerhouse, where we champion relational change makers and leaders using our relational change maker model, which looks like a community of practice, which you've heard about because Daphne's been part of it on the leader path, which is our practice of our brave space to practice relational ways of being. Our storytelling platform called Amplify, which you've also heard a little bit about because Daphne's Amplify profile will be up shortly. And our constellation network, that is the house. That's all of us. Everything we do is guided by Indigenous and ancestral wisdom, which is more often than not matriarchal and matrilineal in approach. And so that's where the her comes from in our name. We want to thank our impact media producer and sister company, Regen Media, who reminds us that we can take the power of media into our own hands when we support stories that heal, regenerate, uplift, and transform. And thank you to you, Charlene, for all your work here. And thank you to the hands at our back, Powerhouse and Regen's digital storytellers, Zoe Gray, Madeline Archibald, and Willow Smith. And thanks to my co-hosts and sisters in change, the Braid of Powerhouse, which is Shar, Christina Benti, Sharon Marshall, who's not here with us this morning. And of course, to you for being here with us, Daphne, for trusting your story in our hands, and to our listeners. And thank you to our listeners and community of change makers, leaders, and social impactors. Thanks for walking with us in co-creation of the world that we're living into together. We want you to know you're welcome to, come and play and grow and walk with us on the leader path, our brave space and community practice. And we will keep meeting you where you're at and challenging you to move forward with what you're ready for. Thanks for being here, everybody. We will see you again. Shama Shah! Bashama Shah!
Yeah.